Hey everybody, welcome to Midweek Live. We're glad that you're here. Kim, and this is Collin Crain,
Hey.
our high school pastor. And man, today we are going to talk about a really difficult subject. I'm just going to say it. It's a really difficult subject that we're going to talk about today. And you might be going, why are you going to talk about a difficult subject the day before Thanksgiving? But truth be told, I think this year has been a difficult year for a lot of people, and a lot of loss, I think, in a lot of families, and maybe just not sure exactly what to do with that loss and how to process things. You might be an immediate circle of that loss, or you might be supporting somebody that has experienced loss. And so I want to just give you a quick background. I'm not going to make Collin do this, so I'm just going to give you guys, if you don't know Collin is the oldest of 5 brothers, born to Carrie and Eddie Crain. Eddie Crain was our children's pastor here for, I'm not even sure exactly how many years. Do you have any idea? A while.
A long time.
Maybe, I'm guessing over a decade would be,
Yeah,
probably over a decade.
I think so.
Well, he was the visionary behind the huge children's buildings we have here on our campus. In fact, we were in, I believe, our second year of a children's campaign called Say Yes to the Next Generation. And 5 years ago, this last Sunday, he had given a message with Pastor Steve. He walked off stage and backstage collapsed. He did end up going to the hospital. We had an ambulance pick him up, and he passed away shortly after, I believe, arriving at the hospital. And so, Collin, you were 19 years old when this happened, the oldest of these brothers. And this is, I'm sure, I mean, we're going into Thanksgiving, so this was only a few days later that you guys were sitting having Thanksgiving. And so let's just kind of back up even a little bit more and tell me a little bit more about, like, your dad, from your view, from your landscape. What was Eddie really like as a dad?
Yeah, man, I mean, there's so many things. I don't even know where to go. But one of the things I think about is just how hard my dad worked a lot of the time. I remember hearing stories about him, like, when we were little, working because there was so many of us.
A lot of you.
Working like 3 jobs.
Wow.
And just working hard and providing and caring for us. And there's just caring for us well. Obviously he wasn't perfect, and there were moments that him and I honestly got into it a lot. We argued a lot because we were similar, I think.
Okay.
And which people probably recognize, but we, there were times where we would get into it or whatever. But yeah, I mean, overall, just caring for us well, leading our family really well.
Yeah.
Lots of just great memories doing just things like hunting and fishing, teaching us to do those things. Going to Giants games and Grizzly games, and I'm thinking of I just lost it. Camping trips we used to do.
Yes, I wanted to bring this up. Your dad did something really cool with you guys. I don't even know what you called them. Were they called something?
They weren't, not really.
Okay, so they're like these guy weekends,
Yeah.
and he would take specific son and go ahead of the family, right?
Yeah.
You kind of explain it.
Yeah,
I want to know a little bit about it.
So I think it was going into 7th grade. It would be like the time where your parents would have like the talk or whatever.
Okay, yeah,
But really, it was more just like a purity thing. Like hey, these are the things that like God desires for you,
Wow.
and like these are the things that I want to see you live in, and so we'd have talks and stuff like that. And really, it was like just hang out, like play cards. We loved to play card games and fish. And so it started with just me and him going, and then it was Kyle coming, and I went along with them, and then Camden, and then Clayton, and so it was just we would go do that. We would have like a short, like just talking about certain things.
So there's some specific subject matters you kind of wanted to talk about.
Like there were 4 things that I can't even remember all of them. I know one of them was don't be passive. One of them was look for the greater reward. And then there was 2 others that he, just kind of nailed down as like, these are the things that I think they're probably from a book, but these are the things that like, you know, being what it looks like to be a man and what it looks like to be someone who, a man that follows Jesus.
Right.
And so anyway, so that was kind of.
You guys even have like a family verse or
Yeah. Colossians 3:23 was our, you know, work willingly, whatever you do is so for the Lord, not for man. So that was kind of the thing that we said over and over again. Every time he dropped us off at school, he'd give us a high five, and that high five was always his reminder. He would say it all the time of remember who you are, and remember that verse, remembering that you're representing Jesus and you're representing the Crain family.
Wow.
And so, you know, so that was kind of that.
You know, okay, so we talked about this before. When you were 19 and this happened, you were in your second or third, couldn't figure out exactly, maybe second or third year in college. Did you already know you wanted to be a pastor at this time?
It was around that time. I had had conversations with, you know, I went through a lot of just personal, denying wanting to be the call to be a pastor for a while. I was deathly afraid of that because I didn't want to speak in front of people. Didn't want to, didn't feel like I was able to do some of the things that a pastor does. And, you know, God kind of nudged me in that direction even more. And I think that I remember there was specific conversations with my dad going to FPU. I went into FPU to be a teacher. Okay. And that's what I thought I wanted to do, or at least, you know, was trying to want to do. And then I, you know, just throughout the years had conversations with my dad about being a pastor, and he would ask me, and I would say, I don't know, you know, and then there was just it was before he passed away, there was a moment where God kind of just got a hold of me and said, you know, no, this is something I want you to do, and I want you to speak in front of people, which terrified me, still terrifies me. Yeah. And so just started walking that journey. It was probably, you know, the same year that I chose to do that he did pass away. Yeah. So he knew that this might be a path for you. Was he encouraging you in it? Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, he was encouraging wherever I went. But yeah, I mean, I think that he did. There were times that he saw that this was something that I could do, but he didn't want to be the one to be he wanted you to come to that place. Yeah. Because you couldn't do it for him. You would have to do it. I mean, this is such a fully encompassing job. I mean, it's a ministry in and of itself to be a pastor. Totally. So so I think he did that in a kind of a gentle way, asking questions and just kind of hearing what my desires were and allowing me to do that on my own. Yeah. So how do you think, I mean, you're the oldest of your brothers, when this happened, how did dynamics change in your household? I imagine that they did. Yeah, for sure. I mean, I remember we parked back here, the funeral, for the funeral. We came and drove. I remember I was driving. We parked back here and we sat there for a second. And Colton said to us in the car, he said, you know, he knew where we were going, knew that we were going to the big funeral here, and he said something like, you know, hey, Collin, you can be our new dad. You know, just super innocent, super, probably because I was driving and because I was the oldest. And so absolutely, I mean, things changed, dynamics changed. You know, I just was, I remember the Thanksgiving day, my I think I've talked about this before, my grandpa came and tapped me on the shoulder and before dinner and said, hey, you're the man of the house now, gather everyone to pray and you should pray. And that terrifying me and, you know, just feeling anxious about that. And so it changed for sure. You know, feeling like I had to be kind of the person leading. I remember asking my mom, do I need to get another job? And, you know, luckily we had people that cared for us so well that didn't need to do that. But yeah, so I mean, it changed things for sure. Probably there were some ways that, you know, I was still dealing with grief and the pain. Yeah, I was just gonna say, how do you deal with that and also have these messages of am I supposed to
fill in somewhere. I mean, that
Yeah.
doesn't feel right. I mean, how do you process that?
Yeah, it was tough. I think that yeah, I mean there were times that that I for sure like tried to step in where I probably didn't need to, or
Like with your brothers?
yeah, with my brothers, or with my mom and stuff like that, and so but then there were moments that like I knew that I had to step up and like do things like take my brother to school, or I had to like be late to class so that I could take Colton to school,
Right.
or I could pick him up from school, or so that I could come home because someone left the garage door open and my mom was
Right.
like home and not knowing,
Right.
so I had to like walk in the house, make sure no one's
Yeah.
in there, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, so it was a hard balance to find. And one of the things that helped me, I think, was that next year, I went and served at Sunshine.
Okay.
And so kind of getting away helped, and maybe that's not for everybody, but
Well, Sunshine Ministries is the ministry you guys do. It's houseboats.
yeah, so houseboats.
Right. So.
So I served with them for a summer, driving boats, and there was a lot of like just healing in like not being so caught up in myself, but serving other people and allowing God to use my experience just 6 months ago to help people that were struggling.
How were those conversations? Did you find yourself like, were those obvious moments where God was prompting you, hey, I want you to share what you've walked in?
Yeah, I mean, there were times that definitely there were moments that I felt like God was, asking me to share or whatever. But there were also moments that it wasn't even me sharing. It was just that I was able to like sympathize with how someone was feeling. And so I wouldn't even share that was something I experienced. I just would be able to sit there and I remember there were moments that I cried with a few students and like sitting there like I know how you're feeling, and or sitting there like man, like I'm so sorry, and getting to share some of the things that helped me even in those 6 months.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean there were moments that I did share my story, but then
Right. You actually said something that I think is really important. You said that there was times you didn't share, but you just sat with. And here is where I think for those that maybe aren't dealing with the direct loss.
Yeah.
And there's the question of, I mean, I brought this up to you, and so when I communicated with Collin that I thought this might be really helpful for people, I was a nervous wreck to even bring it up because in my mind, I thought I don't want to cause you pain. I don't want to bring up something that maybe you're trying to avoid. And so, I did a long email with me just constantly saying, it's okay if you say no, and I totally understand. But I think that's the position of so many people that do really, truly care about the people that they're seeing hurting, and they just don't know how to love them well.
Yeah.
So, Collin, how do we love people that are in loss well?
Yeah, it's not an easy question to answer for sure.
Yeah.
But, I think that, man, some of the things that we talked about is just being available without expectation is the thing that,
I love that.
came to mind. Just the thing that was so helpful for me, having so many people that were there, available, open, but didn't hold the expectation for me to respond a certain way. And so I think if you're walking with someone in loss, like the question to ask is, like before you even reach out or before you ask the question of someone, am I ready to listen? Is this like a selfless thing? Like I'm gonna be there and not have this expectation that they should do something. I remember people feeling off because I wouldn't respond by breaking down and crying or by just wanting a hug or by, and that's just not my personality. And people expected me to do that because that's what a lot of people do.
Right.
But the most helpful thing for me was when people were just available and ready when I was ready to talk about it. And I remember this this was a conversation that Evie and I actually had when we were dating.
Okay.
She asked me like how come you don't talk more about your dad? Like how come you don't talk more about how you feel? And it's like obviously there are some things in me where I need to figure out how to talk about my feelings and learn how to do that, but it was also, I just told her, like, that's just not my personality. I love to remember things, love to talk
Right.
about things. And so she's learned that, like, there are moments where she'll ask me a question. Hey, is this, like, what did you and your dad used to do? Or how's this, And so we'll talk about memories and we'll talk about things like that. But, just being available rather than, like, sitting and expecting them to respond a certain way.
Yeah, and I was talking to my youngest Dyson even about some of this, and he made a comment. I almost wish that people could wear like a sticker that says "I'm ready to talk about it" or "I'm not ready to talk about it." And I think two things. I think number one, if you are a person who is truly coming in a position of, I just want you to know that I'm here.
Yeah.
If that is a true statement on my behalf, then whatever answer you give me after that, it's not about me.
Yeah.
It's not about me, and I'm okay with
Totally.
that. So if I bring up, hey, how are you doing?
Yep.
On Sunday, I recognized that it was the day, the day, 5 years ago, and seeing even your brother, and you want to just say, like, man, I love you. I'm so glad that you're here, that we get to do ministry together. But at the same time, there's this part, like I said, that part of you that just goes, I don't want to cause undue pain.
Yeah.
Or, maybe they're having a good day and I'm going to go and ruin it, in this moment. Are there specific things you would say to, like, somebody? The comment I just made was that I would ruin your day. Have there been moments that people have said things to you that have ruined your day?
No, honestly, not at all. And again, this is my personality, and so this may not be the case for everybody, but I do think that when someone genuinely just comes and says, hey, I love you, hey, I care about you, when someone just genuinely comes and says, hey, how you doing, with no expectation, like, that doesn't hurt me at all. And I think I said this to you, but it feels more comfortable, almost uncomfortable for you asking me than it does for me to answer you.
Right.
And, like, I'm okay with you coming and saying, hey, how are you doing? I'm okay with you coming and asking. And honestly, I may answer you not good, or I may answer you and give you something. But it, like you just said, it doesn't matter the answer I give you, because it wasn't.
Right. My position should being the asker. My position should always be, I'm okay with whatever answer I'm getting.
Yeah. And so I don't think that I think the benefit of reaching out to that person, sending the text, asking how you're doing, just saying that I love you and I care about you, doing those things, the benefit of those things is worth the being uncomfortable. And the unknown of how are they going to respond. And the unknown of if that's going to cause pain to rise. And I think that, again, this may be overgeneralizing, but I think that is, like, more helpful than hurtful. I think it's more hurtful when you hold it in and not tell someone you care about them. Than it is when you can go and just say, I care about you.
Yeah. And I'm sure we've said this to each one of your brothers, they have responded differently.
Totally.
There's been, you guys are individuals.
Yeah.
So, it's, it goes without saying that this is just a difficult thing. How is that relationship with each one of your brothers? I mean, now they're older. It's been 5 years now. Has things even changed since those initial moments?
Yeah.
Now you're married. You've been married a little over a year now. October was a year.
Yeah.
How has it developed now into relationships as you guys are 5 years older than you were?
Yeah, it's definitely changed. I mean, like, probably, it depends on who we're talking about, but, like, I could talk to Camden, I could talk to Kyle, Clayton may, I could ask him a question and probably would give me a one-word answer, but that's just him. And it's okay.
And you're actually, so in other words, you're kind of doing the same thing that I'm talking about on an even more, in inner circle scale, in that you're willing to ask the question, but you're also willing to say, okay, well, maybe he's not ready to talk about it, and that's okay too.
Right. Totally. Yeah. I mean, I remember talking to Clayton, and I are pretty similar.
Okay.
In some ways, Clayton, probably is a little more reserved in, like, what he would be willing to share, but which is okay. But he, I remember asking him that, just driving home from school one day,
Mm-hmm.
like just saying, "Hey, how are you doing?
Mm-hmm.
Like, are you?" And I remember asking him directly, "Are you missing Dad?" Like,
Mm-hmm.
and him just saying, "Yeah," and me just
That
saying,
just
"Me
being,
too,"
yeah,
and that was it.
that was it.
And we moved on and had a different conversation, and
Yeah.
it was okay. But being able to like just
Mm-hmm.
be like, "Yeah, me too,"
Hmm.
like we're in the same boat,
Hmm.
was so, I think, so helpful for me,
Hmm.
and I can't help but think so helpful for him.
Yeah.
Um,
When you were going through the loss, I remember I was telling you this too, that I was talking to my dad about it. My dad lost his mom when he was 16 years old. And one of the things I remember him sharing with me was that he held a lot of guilt because his mom was in the hospital, and so he'd walk past the hospital to go to school each day and didn't visit her all that often. Do you feel like how much does guilt play in the heart of somebody who's dealing with loss?
yeah, I mean, there's for sure things that I mean, our situation is probably different, and mine is, than maybe some other
Well,
people,
for
and
sure.
different than you
Yeah, and
talked
we
about.
don't claim
But
to be counselors by any
no,
means. This is
right,
just us
right,
having a conversation
totally,
about being human and
yeah,
experiencing loss. Yeah.
absolutely, yeah. So it's not a answer for all, but I do remember feeling that some sense of guilt of like, we just talked about like the day that my dad did pass, like remember feeling like, hey, I should go the night before. I'm feeling like, hey, I should go and just say, hey, praying for you. Hey, I'm excited to hear it, whatever. Or thinking about the next day, like thinking I should send a text. And I didn't. And
Right.
I wish I would have,
Right.
looking back at that, I wish I would have done that. But I think that just having to hold on to like the fact that just having to hold on to hope that like my dad knew that I loved him,
Yeah.
and I knew that he loved me,
Yeah.
and I know that he's with Jesus, and so at one day, way I didn't though I didn't get to tell him that day, or something in the past, one day, and I hope to like just be able to talk to him again, have a
Yeah.
conversation,
Yeah.
hug him,
Yeah.
say, man, that was a great message that you gave, or,
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah.
And so,
Is it is it almost like I don't want to put words in your mouth. What has the experience been like to be a staff now and now a pastor at the same church that your dad pastored at, with children who are now
yeah, yeah,
you're even pastoring in high
totally.
school, right? What is that like?
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty cool. I think it's pretty awesome,
Yeah.
and the way that God works, I would never have like expected to be in this role. I think that like when I moved over to being a pastor in college, like when I moved my major, and
Right.
I didn't really expect to stay at Northpointe. I expected that I'd find somewhere
Right.
else, and that was okay, and
Right.
find another place to call home,
Right.
and but the way God works is crazier and wilder than we could
Right.
imagine. And so yeah, I mean, it's kind of a cool thing to be able to think about, some of the kids that knew my dad and my dad knew are now in high school or graduated from high school now,
Right.
and
Right.
and so other than just it's cool, I don't know,
Yeah. Yeah. We
um,
talk a lot about legacy,
yeah,
right? We talk about
yeah,
legacy a lot at the church. These children's buildings are like constant reminders, I'm sure, to
yeah.
some degree. Is that a helpful thing, or can be a hurtful thing sometimes for you?
For me, it's more of a helpful thing. For me, it's a cool reminder, and I think that I got there a little faster than maybe because I had to, because I was around, but than some of my family did.
Yeah.
I remember Colton coming here and not wanting to go in the kids building, and not wanting to go to classes, and crying in third grade because he didn't want to, and not even really having to say that was why, but
Right.
knowing,
That probably was.
and same with, probably Clayton, and it was just, it's just
Yeah.
how it is,
Yeah.
and just it takes time. It takes time to be able to make it like
Yeah.
something that you can celebrate. But the thing that I love is just getting to see that when I get to sit in there and see the way that like ministry happens, and beyond the way that my dad even envisioned, and seeing
Yeah.
the way that God like just takes like our vision and it like blows it up and does like crazy cool things beyond us, is kind of a cool thing that I love to see, and just to celebrate, internally, and watching ministry happen through these.
Yeah,
these
I mean,
buildings.
I think it's the coolest thing
Yeah.
to see this happen. You were brought up in a Christian home, experiencing loss in the spectrum of being a believer. What would you say to somebody who's experienced loss and they don't know the Lord? I mean, you hear it a lot, you see it a lot, that people want to be angry and want to blame someone, and oftentimes they want to blame God for loss. Did you ever find yourself doing that?
Yeah, absolutely. I was there. I had moments that I was like punching the steering wheel. God, why? Why would you make this happen? My dad was working for you. Why would you do this? And honestly, I don't have an answer for that still.
Right.
But that's part of faith. That's part of trusting that God is good. And part of faith is trusting that through time, that answer may not all the way be revealed, but God is like doing something, again, bigger than we could ever imagine, and beyond who we are. And so I think the thing that for me that helped me in that was one of the stories that for me was so life-changing and transforming for me was John 11 when Lazarus dies.
Yes.
Gosh, that story just like transformed my perspective in going through grief and loss. And so going through that story, Jesus does some crazy weird things. There's probably a lot we could talk about in there, but Lazarus dies, and his sisters, Mary and Martha, come to Jesus, and they both say the same thing. Jesus, if you were here, my brother would not be dead. And asking Jesus why. And I think Martha's first, and Martha says, but I know that she says, she justifies it with something. And then Mary comes and says the same thing, but she doesn't justify it. And I felt like Mary, Jesus, I know that you're good. Jesus, I know that you can raise people from the dead. Jesus, I know that you could have healed my dad. Jesus, I know, but why didn't you? And I felt that way. And then it says that that Jesus like kept going, and he cared for Mary in that moment, and then he kept going. He doesn't give her an answer, and he keeps going. But then it says the short verse that everybody knows is that Jesus, verse? Right? Jesus wept, and what a powerful thing to hear. I read that and went like, geez, like the fact that Jesus, like, he didn't give her an answer. He didn't like say, get over it. He didn't say like, just wait and trust. He just kept going. Knew what God was going to do, knew that God was going to do something bigger than they could imagine, which he did, and then just goes and weeps with them. And the thing that I, like just totally transformed my view of who God is that God came like and experienced the things we experienced. Wow. It's the Hebrews that says that like we don't have a high priest that's unable to sympathize with our weaknesses. We have one that has experienced the temptations that we have without sin. And Jesus experienced the grief and the pain that so much that he looks at the pain that all of his friends are facing and his friends dying, knowing like he knows that Lazarus is going to raise from the dead.
Right. And
but
he
it's
also
still,
knows the heaven in
yeah,
which, I mean,
he
if
knows
it went
at the end everything, right? Like, but he still experiences the weight of grief.
Wow.
And knows how heavy that is and how difficult that is, and cries and weeps because of it. And so I read that and went, Jesus is weeping with me, like Jesus is grieving with me. And so if someone is sitting here saying, gosh, I don't believe in Jesus, I don't have faith, I don't believe in God, whatever, I'm angry at God because of loss, like I would just say, well, Jesus is sitting next to you weeping. Jesus is someone who desires to put his arm around you and walk with you through this. He may not give you an answer. He may not calm the storm right away, but he says we're going to get to the other side together. And the other side is something so much bigger and so much better than you could ever imagine.
Yeah.
And that's weird to say when you lose someone.
Yeah.
But it's it's the truth.
Right.
It's the way that God works.
I've heard you give a message a few times that talks a lot about the thing you just said, the loudness of a storm, and you're waiting to hear the Lord, right? And he didn't come in the thunder, and he didn't come in, all of these bigger moments.
Yeah.
He didn't come in that. He came in like a quiet whisper. Do you feel like you felt that in that moment?
Yeah, absolutely. And it wasn't like one moment. It wasn't like this crazy like middle of the night thing.
Right.
It was kind of an over time thing, where I just felt God's comfort, knowing that I had people around me, that I had people that were available, and knowing that Jesus was there the whole time. And I think the thing that helped me recognize that was continuing to be in God's Word. That was a habit that I had before, and a habit that I luckily continued after.
Right.
And so I think that like that would be an encouragement or a tip or something, whatever you want to call it, is continue to be in God's Word, because that's a way that God speaks. And shows us who he is and the way that he walks with us in the middle of a storm. So
would you say that's one of the biggest tool that you used?
Yeah.
And then friendships, I imagine.
Yeah.
A lot of friendships that came around.
Totally.
Did you lose friendships in the middle of this? It sounds like a weird question, but
Yeah. No, not really. I think that a lot of my friendships got stronger. I think that there were some that like became different, but I didn't lose friendships. But a lot of them, like Josh Manning. I remember there was like the night after, whatever, just that week, there was a middle of the night, 1:00 in the morning. I text him and said, "This sucks." Like those are the words I said, and he didn't respond. But knowing that like I had someone to go to just say this sucks, was so helpful to me. Ken Horton sat down with me like a couple weeks after, and we had people in our house, and incredible people just continuing to hang out with us and family. And but Ken Horton sat with me a couple weeks later and said, I care about you. I just want you to know that I'm available. It's the available without expectation. He was just said, I care about you guys beyond just that last couple weeks. Like, I want to know how you're doing in March and in April and in next year. And knowing that I had someone that cared that much to do that. It was Kevin and Ronnie who, we wore the shirts of the Surf Classic thing, right? Like doing that thing every year, like looking forward to just sitting. It would just be the guys that would just come and sit, and we just talk about, what are the things that you think your dad would love about this last year, and what are the things you think that like you'd probably get in trouble for, the last year.
I love that.
We just sit and talk and share memories. And just my point is having people available and not isolating is the big thing.
How do you make the decision not to isolate? I feel like that's an easy thing to do, and I feel like that's especially easy for that immediate circle of loss, and maybe even being a teenager and not really knowing how to communicate or how to identify the feelings that you're going through. I mean, like literally, what is the steps you need to do to not isolate? Yeah,
get out of the house, do something else. I think we get stuck in the house. This is just my personality. This probably isn't recommended for everybody, but that week, Black Friday, I worked at Old Navy, and that Black Friday I was scheduled to work from like 6 to 2 in the morning or something, and I worked it because I needed to get out of the house, because I had people full in my house, and I just needed to get away. And all the people, all my bosses and everybody were like, "You can go home, like you don't need to be here." And I was like, "No, I'm okay. I just want to be here." And it was just quiet. I was quiet. I was folding clothes. I did stuff in the back and got paid a great paycheck, right? But like my point is I guess don't isolate in just like staying in your room alone. Like I know that like it feels like I have an excuse to do that, and but don't don't just push yourself in going to school, push yourself in going to church. Do not like let those things that you've done go off the wayside. Obviously there's time where
I was going to say,
you know,
what does that, is it like setting, almost like
exactly
setting a time limit on how long to kind of sit in that? And
Yep.
because it's important. I'm
Totally.
guessing part of the process is sitting in the pain.
Totally. I mean, yeah. I mean, don't think that I'm saying we shouldn't, you
for
know,
sure,
we shouldn't grieve or
But
we
it's
shouldn't.
easy to stay there.
But it's easy to stay there, and so I think that, you know, choosing to get out, choosing to set time to get away and get out, and then also surrounding yourself with people that won't allow you to isolate yourself. Now, if you're not experiencing loss now, like do that now. That was the thing that I think helped me incredibly, because I had people that didn't let me isolate myself, people that pushed me to go and sit in a therapy session, people that pushed me to go and do Sunshine. That I would have never done that if it wasn't for Reed at Sunshine. And he said, hey, like, I know what you're feeling. I lost my mom at this, you know, but I think that you need to do this. And it was incredible, and it helped me, and so valuable. So surrounding yourself with people now that that don't allow you to isolate yourself.
I love that. I hope that people can see themselves in so many of the different things you gave right now. So if you're the person going through grief, those are some great things to mention. But I love how you gave us examples of some of the people around you that just didn't, they just, you know, they were there and available for that text, and they were there and made it very clear, I'm here for you, and not just right now. I know everybody's pulling in right now. And as a church, you could feel that. It was almost like tangible thing in those weeks and months afterward. It was just like this collective heartache and heartbreak over such loss. And so you do kind of wonder, after that initial, where is everybody? You know, there's probably moments like that. So if you're having that inkling in your head that I really need to reach out to somebody, don't hesitate. That is the Holy Spirit doing the work.
And if you don't know who to reach out to, like, reach out to me and I'll help you reach out to some, or you, or someone, one of our pastors, someone, like, don't allow yourself to, like, I think just get in this cycle of, I'm too broken, no one knows what I'm feeling, no one knows what this is like, kind of thing.
Do you think your relationship with the Lord is stronger than it was?
Yeah, absolutely. And there's not really any question, or I think that, totally. And walking through the why, God, would you allow this to happen, strengthened incredibly. I don't have the answer, but that trust, the faith, the being able to say, I don't have the answer, but I trust you, God, was just life-changing. And then being able to see the way that God used my story to again, help people, whether that was sharing my story or just sitting with people.
It probably makes you a pretty unique high school pastor, equipped in some pretty, unique ways to meet people, because you do have a personality that is not like extremely, which actually can be very helpful for the person that is more isolated, because you probably feel a lot more approachable. The big personalities for somebody that's a little bit more quiet and introverted, probably feel pretty intimidated to walk up to someone like that. So the one thing that I really love about you is you just have a disposition that is very much inviting, and you can just, you're kind of just even keeled. You always have been. You always have. Other than water polo, that's when we really got to see a more feisty side of you. Those are good times.
Those were good times.
Collin, is there any last thoughts you have just regarding loss, and especially going into the holidays? Not that there is ever an easy time to experience loss, but it feels like it's especially difficult when you're having so many of these family moments and this constant reminder. Is there any last thoughts you have that you would like to share with people heading into Thanksgiving tomorrow and then the Christmas season?
Yeah, I think that, man, we talk about funerals being like a celebration of life, and like that's the language we use at a funeral.
Right.
But like, I think, gosh, the thing that I've learned over the last 5 years is just celebrating my dad's life constantly. And learning to do that has helped me heal and grow and celebrating. So on Thanksgiving, if we're not doing the same thing that, like tomorrow, I'm not doing the same thing we used to do with my dad.
Right.
But I get to celebrate that, like, we did used to do that, and I used to have that with my dad. And we, like I talked about the wake surf things that we've done every year.
Right. Yeah.
One year we went to a Giants game for my dad's birthday because my dad loved the Giants. Or
Right.
so just I guess the last thought that I would have is just choosing to do those things for you that that are celebrating. Choosing not to just let the celebration of life be at the funeral, but to continue to just celebrate life and celebrate who that person was to you and who that person was to everybody else.
That's awesome. I love that. So maybe this Thanksgiving, maybe the holidays, just take the time to just kind of stop and look around, enjoy the people you have around you in these moments. And also celebrate those that we do miss. It's okay to do that. I love that. I love the freedom to say, let's just do that. Let's step into celebration of life. It doesn't have to just be this one day as at a funeral. I think that's amazing. I hope this has been helpful. I really hope this has been helpful for you. And if you're walking through any of this, our prayers are for you. As a church, we understand what this feels like. As a person, what this really feels like. And I imagine loss is not something you get over. You learn how to deal with in life. You learn how to function within. And so we hope that it's been helpful for you. We'll drop in some links for some services we've done that talked about grief and some tools that might be helpful for you guys. But ultimately, we just hope that you guys have a good rest of your day and have a good Thanksgiving tomorrow. Thank you so much for joining us. Have a good one. Bye, guys.
See ya.